It's everybody's favorite time of the postgame show. That's right. We're bringing in the man from the LINC himself, our Eagles insider, Zach Berman, looking sharp, a little blurry. There's some kind of effect going on here.
Yeah, it might be the studio lighting. I'm not sure.
It's like a halo effect that you've got going on. You look heavenly.
I'll check that afterwards to see if there's a filter I should take off. But nonetheless, hustled up here from the locker room, and an interesting locker room. So many storylines here. Obviously, Saquon Barkley. Obviously, winning the NFC East. Obviously, the backup quarterback situation. CJ Gardner-Johnson was a storyline in there that people brought up. So it can go in a number of different directions here. But everyone was talking about Saquon in the huddle on offense. In the offensive linemen we're talking about getting Saquon Barkley the record. And at one point, Landon Dickerson says to Jordan Mailata, he's 48 yards away, or I guess whatever the number was. And
you mean
and
from
Jordan's
2000,
like from
not the actual.
Well, yeah,
record.
well, no. So that's the thing. So Jordan's like from the record, and then Landon's like no from 2K, right? So that there's talks of both of those records. 2,000 yards was significant to Saquon Barkley. Did you hear Saquon Barkley's press conference by any chance?
We did not.
Okay, yeah. So I asked Saquon, and Saquon was honest about that. He knew, the amount of players who have done this in NFL history, and players he's looked up to, and players he's studied, and so to be part of that group meant a lot to him. That was kind of the number that he's been thinking about, and the prestigious number for him. He didn't go into the year with that as a goal, but he realized pretty quickly in the year that could be a possibility here. He actually said going into the year, he was hoping for 2,000 all-purpose yards. That was the goal he was thinking about. And then he realized when you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, your job's basically to carry the rock, he said, right? So that was the way he framed it. But that 2,000-yard number meant a lot to a lot of players in there. So the natural follow-up then is, does he go for the record next week? And it's pretty split. Saquon Barkley said he's going to leave that up to Nick Sirianni. Jordan Mailata said he wants Saquon to get it, and as a captain, he's going to tell Nick that he wants Saquon to get it. A.J. Brown says it's history. He wants to be a part of history. Lane Johnson said Eric Dickerson did it in 16 games. Like 2,000 yards was the number. So there's I don't want to say conflicting feelings on it, but I asked Jordan point blank, are you going to express this to Nick? And he said yes. He's going to say this to Nick. So I'm curious to see that's obviously going to be the big story this week. I don't mean to ramble here, but there's many other things.
But let's ask you, Zach, knowing this team as you do, if the Eagles don't have anything to play for next week, what do you think they will do?
I don't think they'll play him. I think it would be. I want to see him play. I mean, 101 yards against that Giants run defense.
Zach, do Jalen Hurts play next week?
That's the thing, and I think Fran is right to bring this up.
Can't play by himself.
Yeah, Vinny. You hit that on the head there. And I was talking to people afterwards, and I said, the carrot they could use is they want to get Jalen some work. They could say, let's get one half of the first team offense. Let's get Jalen fresh. They can use, and I said this on the pregame show. They looked at 2022, Jalen playing week 18 as a valuable thing. Jalen has said that. I spoke to people in the building who said getting Jalen back, giving him that game going into the postseason really helped. The difference, of course, is they had a bye back in 2022. But they could rationalize it by saying, we want to get Jalen some work. We don't want it to be, 2+ weeks in between. And you basically say, Saquon, you have one half here, right? You have one half to try to get this number. I could see that, but
he starts trying to just jump over every single player on the field. Like he's got 6 carries to get it done.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. It's going to be the big story this week.
All right. Well, obviously, we are very excited to see how that all plays out, and very dependent on what happens elsewhere in the league.
Yeah.
What did you make of the backup quarterbacks in this game, Zach? And what was the reaction in the locker room?
Yeah, so there was a lot of praise about Kenny Pickett's toughness. Kenny was dealing with this injury throughout the week. As a matter of fact, Tanner McKee took most of the snaps in Friday's practice. And this was not the players knew Kenny was starting, but they knew that they knew that they were also getting Tanner ready. Jordan Mailata said that the secret of the Mormon missile is out now. Everyone knows who he is. He said behind the scenes, like people knew this about Tanner McKee. So did Bo
behind
Wolf,
the scenes. How about in front of the camera? We've been talking about this for years.
Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of praise about Kenny Pickett's play. AJ Brown said like he wished that touchdown pass counted because he was like that was a dot. That pass to him was a dot.
The Pickett one.
The Pickett one. Yeah, yes. He wished the play that Pickett got hurt on. He was talking about Kenny, he's like he wished that play counted because that was like a heck of a throw by Pickett. There was the sentiment was like they're happy for Kenny. This is kind of the culture of the locker room. You hear this a lot. The next guy has to step up. They've experienced this before. But yeah, for them to put up 41 points with their two backup quarterbacks says something about the Cowboys defense, but also says something about kind of this Eagles machine. And I definitely think it gives them confidence going forward here.
We haven't talked about the AJ Brown one-hander from Tanner McKee. That was a foot away from just an insane catch.
I even asked AJ, which was your best catch of the day? And he's like, he laughed. He said the one that counted because the other ones don't count. So
I think the one that didn't count was the sickest. I mean, that was nuts. Just so you know, Zach, I'm sure you're going to be writing about this, but Tanner McKee, his 156.2 quarterback rating, I mean, puts him in contention for best quarterback in NFL history. And in terms of actual quarterbacks, it's behind only Kerwin Bell.
Well, here you go, Bo. In the NFL draft era since 1936, Tanner McKee is the first player to have multiple touchdown passes in his NFL debut while attempting 5 or fewer passes.
I didn't know you were a quarterback rating guy all of a sudden, Bo.
I thought the same thing, Zach. It's funny
when Nick Sirianni mentioned quarterback rating, you were like appalled.
Well, when I can tell you that by the eye test, he's the best quarterback who's ever lived, but that's that's neither here nor there. Yeah. That's why Jalen's going to play next week is because Tanner's playing in the playoff.
Yeah. I do think Kenny played a good game too. I think both of them, it was an impressive performance all around. Now, this was interesting. The NFC East of this all, right? Saquon Barkley was saying he didn't know what a hat and shirt game was. He didn't know this that this was a thing. He never experienced it. There were some guys in there who were really emotional. Mekhi Becton had tears in his eyes. Like Jordan Mailata was saying, they felt really good for Mekhi. There are certain guys who have never experienced a division crown who this was significant for. There were other guys who could not care less about winning the NFC East. I'll give you a funny anecdote here, okay? So Devontae Smith's locker is next to AJ Brown's locker, and I was, AJ had a big scrum around him, and I was kind of like on the outskirts trying to listen, but I didn't want to invade Devontae's space because Devontae was still kind of packing things up. And Devontae, when he was ready to leave, he told me I can kind of, I could come into that spot. And he starts walking away, but I said, Devontae, do you want your hat? And he like, no, I don't want the hat, right? And as Saquon said, because this didn't matter to Saquon. Saquon said, no one's going to remember that you won the 2024 NFC East, right?
Yes.
And the message actually, Jordan Mailata said that CJ Gardner-Johnson broke the team down after the game. Because Jalen Hurts wasn't there and CJ Gardner-Johnson stepped up in there, and CJ Gardner-Johnson's message was like, enjoy this now. This is good, but they got bigger goals. And like Jordan said, that encapsulates what their message is. So it's interesting because you have Vinny on set here, right? I mean, I'll defer to Vinny. There are certain games where you got the cigar smoke and, players are really celebrating the achievement. You see in like Major League Baseball, they're popping champagne. I obviously wasn't in there for the initial celebration, but that was not the way this seemed. This for a lot of guys in there, this was very matter of fact. I mean, there were a number of players who weren't wearing the shirt, who weren't wearing the hat. I mentioned to Jordan Mailata that he was wearing the T-shirt, and he's like, I had to put on something here, and it was just like the first shirt there. But he kind of took the thinking that this is very businesslike. Like this is the next game. So I found that Devontae anecdote particularly colorful because it was like he didn't care about the NFC East. He cares about kind of what's next here. CJ Gardner-Johnson left the locker room wearing a ski mask, if that gives you any hint about like the way he was thinking today.
Good comment from Shay. Zach, I'm curious, can you confirm that it was actually Quinyon Mitchell who was about to break the team down before CJ Gardner-Johnson did it?
Yeah, that's funny. CJ apologized to Quinyon.
I was going to actually ask you that. Did he apologize? Yeah.
Of course he were.
Yeah, he apologized to Quinyon.
Did he apologize to Jamie?
He apologized to Quinyon.
Yeah.
No, why? Was there a prop bet with Quinyon interception?
No, it's
Jamie's
just
Quinyon,
defensive rookie of the year up for grabs here, and Chop Robinson's making a case. Jared Ver, an interception could have been a nice little icing on the cake there.
True. Yeah. I mean, one interception's not gonna. I hear it. It was in his hands, but man, CJ, like I don't think enough's being made of like what CJ's done as a ball hawking safety. 6 interceptions in his 2 seasons with the Eagles. The only player who's had more interceptions in the past 20 years is Asante Samuel in Eagles history, like in a season. There's been other guys who've had 6, but it's CJ's only 2 years here. He's had 6 interceptions. He said after the game that he was pretty clear when he got here that he's one of the best safeties in the league. This isn't a matter of proving anything, but this is kind of how he feels his status is in the NFL.
All right, what else did you get from the locker room?
Yeah, so a lot of it obviously was about the rest for next week and that debate, and players see the merit of rest, but there is a strong sentiment that they want to see history. Like, how often are you on the doorstep of history, if you will? I did look in a game like this, as you guys all know, you can go big or you can go small, right? You can go like the big picture themes, but then you also have like the nitty gritty of the game. So I did speak to Oren Burks, great guy to speak to, Bo, and he confirmed that
dreams come true.
The plan, yeah. No, Oren and I have had many of good conversations during the season. He said the plan was for him and Jeremiah to rotate, right? And he said like this has kind of been his role in his career, to be the next linebacker up, to be the top reserve. So the moment wasn't too big for him. I thought that was big for the Eagles, like that. The Nakobe absence, I was curious how that would affect them, and I thought the linebackers played decently. You saw Oren Burks get his hand on the ball, forcing that fumble. So that stood out. Speaking to CJ, I was curious what CJ had to say. He did not want to get into like atoning for last week or anything of that nature. He said there was nothing that needed to be said today, right? As far as the talking trash element of it. But yeah, I for full disclosure, I did not go to Kenny Pickett's press conference or Nick Sirianni's press conference. I went to Saquon's, and then I was working the locker room thereafter. But I heard Tanner McKee speak for a little there, trying to decide what he's going to do with the ball. I don't need to give you any of the ball news. You had that. You had the man on. Shout out to Jamie. Great work there getting Patrick Driscoll. Is that the name?
He was the man.
Yeah, awesome.
From Audubon, New Jersey.
Yeah, they have a great hardware store.
Honestly, it's my fault. I should have followed up to ask him if he's ever been to Audubon Hardware.
Yeah, they have a great hardware store in Audubon, and a great diner as well. But yeah, so you guys were all over the ball story there, and yeah, I was kind of focused on Saquon. I was focused on the NFC East, and then some of like the nitty gritty of this game.
Did McKee speak?
He did. He spoke by his locker. It was a big crowd. I was in Jake Elliott's way. Jake Elliott wanted to change, right? And so what?
I mean, you want to talk about greatness. You do all this stuff on Saquon Barkley. You don't talk to the greatest quarterback in NFL history?
Yeah, Tom Brady was not in the building tonight. All right. But no, look, Tanner McKee, as Jordan Mailata said, the secret's out about the Mormon missile.
Well, and he helped the running game. Saquon needs to give Tanner McKee credit. It was much more successful as a runner in this game with Tanner McKee.
Yeah, the offensive linemen were talking there. They actually said that they thought maybe we can when I say we, this is them talking. Maybe we can get Saquon the record right now, right? They were thinking that because, like Jordan said, they know Nick's going to be thinking about this week. They didn't know what the plan was for next week against the Giants. Jordan said we don't know if it's the Saturday game that could factor into things. So he's like on the field. The offensive linemen were like, let's try to get him the record now. And then when he got 2,000, Lane kind of made it sound like 2,000 was the number that he was going for.
I think that's what they were.
Jordan made it sound like they were thinking for the Dickerson record, but Lane was like 2,000 is a huge deal. He played with the leading rusher his rookie year. He didn't know if he would have the chance to do that again. 2,000 is a number that means a lot to the offensive lineman. He's like, Eric Dickerson did it in 16 games. You can't take anything away from that. Now, Dickerson did it with more carries, from what I understand, right?
Like
so
correct, 38 more.
Yeah. So
but
that's
it's still not.
About. What do you guys think?
If you want to take the carries down, it's still not the highest yards per carry. He's fourth of the 9 2,000-yard rushers.
He's 13th all time in scrimmage yards, but if he got 150 next week, he can move to third all time in scrimmage yards.
Hey, let me ask you this, Zach. Do we talk about who won a Super Bowl in '84, or we talk about Dickerson's record in '84?
If you were a fan of the team,
great question.
We talk about Eric Dickerson's record.
Great. That's a good point. That's a really good point. And look, I think that the part of this is if they play their guys and someone gets hurt, if this is like Wes Welker in that week 17 game, right? Then that's all anyone's talking about. And it casts this cloud over the team during the playoffs. The flip side is if he gets it, you stay healthy. You have this year that is historic, like a 30-year record lasts that long because it's hard to do. And you don't know if you're on the doorstep of it. I mean, no one's ever done 2,000 yards twice in a season until maybe Derrick Henry this year, right? So when you're this close, look, I understand that I'm a narrative guy. I get it. Guilty as charged. I want him to play next week. I mean, it's so cool. Like it's to witness history against his former team. Don't play scared. You're going
to get
hurt. You can get hurt any week, right? There's no such thing as a meaningless game, in my opinion.
I would say this though. I'm all for if Jalen plays, but if Hurts ain't playing, then nah. Everybody says.
Yeah, I think you got to play Jalen because you got to showcase him for the offseason. What do you think the Eagles could get for him in return?
No, but to your point, both these backups aren't coming back next year. I would be, I think that, and I'll defer to Fran. What's that?
Strong.
That was very strong. That was so funny the way it was like an
no, I think they're going to. I think they're going to trade one. I think they're going to trade Kenny or they're going to trade Tanner. I don't think they bring both of them back next year. I think that there's going to be a market there. Now, I would imagine there's more of a market for Tanner than for Kenny. But because there's 2 years left on Tanner's deal at a lower price, whereas Kenny was going into the last year of his deal next year, assuming a team doesn't pick up the 5th-year option. But I think that there's value here with these quarterbacks. I'll defer to Fran, but this isn't a loaded quarterback draft class, right? There are teams that are outside of the top 10, let's say, and who, if they're looking for a bridge quarterback, you can do a lot worse than Kenny Pickett next year. Now, we'll see, but no, because a team's going to have to decide: are you paying, $15 million for Justin Fields in free agency, or are you going, or would you rather trade a 5th for Kenny Pickett, right? And that's a conversation that I imagine teams are going to have.
All right, you're breaking it down. I like it. All right, Zach, give us a little pitch on what you're going to be, how you're going to put some words together, maybe form some sentences, and go from there on all PHL.
This is one of those days. Yeah, this is the tough one because there's more stories than hours, right? And so you write multiple stories off a game like this, but you have to decide which one goes up first. Do you go Saquon first? Do you go NFC East / quarterbacks first? Like, is Saquon better as the next day story here? Or do you go with, the quarterbacks came in relief, they clinched the NFC East. You kind of do like that big picture story, and then you focus on Saquon next. And then on Tuesday, you come back with CJ Gardner-Johnson, perhaps. But then also, I had this story that's going to work out great this week, which is Saquon Barkley's appreciation for the history of running backs, right? So there's a number of stories that I have. So I think I'm going to try to get 2 stories up tonight, which would be NFC East / backup quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley, and then follow up with a few pieces this week. If my wife is watching this, she's probably rolling her eyes right now. It's New Year's Eve. It's New Year's Day. The kids don't have school this week. I probably have to help a little bit more around the house this week. But man, I mean, you're only going into a Week 18 game like this.
But they go to the back burner. I got a job to do.
I got the rest of my life with these kids.
You got to strike when the iron's hot, right? There's interest this week. If you're not a diehard, this is the time to be a diehard. We got. I mean, Fran's pieces are worth the price right there. You're going to have Les Bowen turn something around Tuesday afternoon. I imagine. I have a few good pieces that I've been kind of holding. I have a interesting piece coming up on Sirianni soon. I have a piece coming up on Jordan Mailata soon that I've been sitting on. So I have some good stories coming up here. You can only read that on allphly.com.
Hey, Zach,
and you have to be
quick.
a diehard because. Yeah,
Vinny mentioned it earlier. Sirianni's not really talked about as a Coach of the Year candidate. You think he should be?
Yes.
A candidate, absolutely. Now, I think Kevin O'Connell's going to win it.
Yeah, I agree.
I get it, right? If you go by the Vegas over-unders and you look at what the Vikings were expected to be and what the Vikings are, and the fact that they're doing it with Sam Darnold, I think O'Connell has a good case for it. But absolutely, like, Nick Sirianni you consider what the conversation was back going into the season. You consider what the conversation was in week 4. And you'd look at, or I should say week 6 rather, and week 4 and week 6. You look at them now, 13-3, at worst the number 2 seed, winning the NFC East. And by the way, not just like beating teams, dominating teams. There's 2 games against the Cowboys this year, 34-7 and 41-7. Mm-hmm. Cowboys won 4 or 5 coming into this game.
Here you go, Zach. Entering the half of the first game, they've now outscored the Cowboys 68-7 in the last 90 minutes.
Yeah, and like today was the most points they scored in the first half in the past 2 years. They did it with their backup quarterback. He replaced both his coordinators this offseason. I mean, I think Nick's done an outstanding coaching job this year. There's this thought that like anyone can coach this team. There's a lot of talented teams who are not going to be in the postseason. I mean, Joe Burrow might be the best quarterback in the NFL right now. They're fighting for a postseason spot. San Francisco's roster. San Francisco.
I'm a little tired.
San Francisco's roster.
He's got like 46 touchdowns and 8 picks.
Yeah, I know. But
San Francisco's roster is loaded.
Stinks.
But he doesn't.
Yeah, better than Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes.
I think he is.
Yeah,
the 49ers had the same Super Bowl hangover that the Eagles had, right? They're not in the postseason. You can go on down the list. I mean, Nick Sirianni, he's coached 4 years. He's been in the playoffs all 4 years. He's won the NFC East twice. He's had double-digit wins 3 of those 4 years.
Talk that talk, Zach. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I said this on the show. Someone said, like, Zach, you're a Sirianni defender. I'm like, I'm not defending Sirianni. I'm just putting out his record, right? His record is defending him, right? I mean, you go 13-3, you win the NFC East, you go to the Super Bowl your second year, you go to the playoffs 4 years in a row. Look at the coaches who've gone to the playoffs 4 years in a row. And the idea that like anyone can coach this team, well, he's the one who coaches this team, right? And so, it's you hear the same thing about Jalen Hurts that like anyone could play quarterback. I mean, look, you're judged based on what you do, and Nick Sirianni wins a lot of games in this league, and that's
he yells at a lot of former franchise icons.
Yeah, so like I'm gonna make a point that I made a few weeks ago. Like, while you're focused on whether his kids are sitting on his lap in his post-game press conference, what he's doing is winning football games, right? He's won 12 of his last 13 games. Is that right? Or 11 of his last 12 games, whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's hard to do in this league. The last coach to go to the playoffs 4 years in a row here was Andy Reid. And last I checked, Andy Reid's going to Canton, Ohio one day. And he was going to Canton, Ohio. So, yeah, I mean, this conversation started with Coach of the Year. I don't have a vote. I would vote. Well, I think I don't exercise my my voting, but for that, I exercise my voting elsewhere. I don't vote on awards because because I don't think that like I'm so hyper focused on the Eagles. I always say this with like all with like the all-pro voting. I'm not watching every team in the league as much as I'm watching the Eagles. I'm watching games that are like, I don't have a frame of reference on who the best left tackles are that I would want to have to to say with authority that this guy's the best left guard in the league. I would say for Coach of the Year, I would give it to Kevin O'Connell based on what the Vikings were expected to be going into the year and what they are now. But Nick Sirianni should absolutely be in that conversation.
Sounds to me, Zach, like this is the week that Reed learns how to transcribe.
My life would be a lot easier if Reed knew how to transcribe. All right. Maybe.
Would you use AI to transcribe for you?
So I have an app on my phone that does it, but they screw words up. And look, if I have a bad transcription in a story, then I can't blame AI. It's my name on the story, right? So I
can't rely on technology.
Yeah.
Once again, you won't lose your job to AI. You'll lose your job to the people who know how to use AI, right? And so it can help me transcribe.
It's not doing the job. It's the perfect example of AI. It's doing a bad version of a real person doing the job.
It's doing it's saving me time, because I can go through with like 70% of it accurate, and then change word, change, and I can use it to make sure. And I imagine in 2 years, and 5 years, and 8 years, and 10 years, they'll continue to get better at it. Just like
continues to kill the planet.
I mean, this conversation has deviated so far from what I came on to discuss.
Zach, we got a question from the chat. They wanted to get your comment on Jimmy Carter's passing. Former president.
It's very sad. Yeah, no, I'm aware. You're catching me off guard here. A man I respect, a good man who's helped a lot of lives throughout Georgia and throughout throughout the country. So I was once on a flight.
Just so you know, this was Fran. I had nothing to do with this.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, my condolences to Jimmy Carter's family, and
they're big fans of the show.
So yeah,
that goes all of them.
I will start there. So I was on a flight in 2008 from Atlanta to Tallahassee. And I was connecting Charlottesville to Atlanta to Tallahassee. I was covering a game against Florida State. It was the last week of October. It was actually the weekend. It was the weekend of the World Series, the Phillies World Series. And I sat next to a guy, and I struck up conversation with him. And it turns out that he's actually an Eagles fan. I said I was from Philadelphia, and he asked me where I was watching the game the next day, and I was like, I'm just going to find a sports bar in Tallahassee. And he's like, why don't you come over to my house? I have my kids are coming in and that kind of thing. And I was like, sure, I appreciate it. And so I go to this guy's house, and I remember talking to my brothers, and they're like, what is wrong with you? You're going to rent dude's house and you sat next on a plane? And I said to them, so this is the title.
Wild.
And I said to them, do you guys know when Jimmy Carter was running for office, he used to stay in people's houses on the campaign trail. It was like his way of like connecting with the everyday Americans, right? Here's this peanut farmer who is going from city to city and he's staying in people's houses. I was like, this is what Jimmy Carter did. And my brothers were like, what does that have to do with going to a guy's house? But,
how are you alive?
I always think, what's
Please
that?
tell me you didn't eat the food.
Yeah. Oh, he had a great spread. I mean, it was like, yeah, it was real heavy Southern food. And I had a flight that I had to catch that night. So some of it I wasn't indulging as much in. But
you probably ate the guy that he sat next to on the plane from a week before.
No, he was a very nice man. But I remember specifically saying, because I had read a Jimmy Carter or skimmed the Jimmy Carter biography at one point. I remember that anecdote of how he was staying at people's houses on the campaign trail. And so I remember using that reference as to why I'm going to this guy's house.
Wow.
God bless you really delivered with that answer. I was not expecting that.
Fantastic.
If by chance that fan from Tallahassee is watching the show right now, please reach out, Zach at allphly.com. I would love to reconnect. You were a very nice host that day.
Is there a book he could buy, Zach?
Yeah, there's a book. There are 2 books out, Underdogs and the Franchise, and who knows, maybe there's going to be a 3rd book out in a few months.
So Zach, Reed is in the chat. If Reed was like, say, 21 years old, just getting out into the world and the universe, starting his career, would you recommend he do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think meeting people, being friendly to people, you never know where it's going to lead. I once got an internship just from the person I sat next to covering a Villanova basketball game, and then we chatted and kept in touch, and he offered me an So it's like, being friendly. Yeah. Lean into being friendly. Always lean into being friendly. You don't want to be standoffish.
Interesting comment from Idiot Sandwich, Zach, who says, skimming a book is the equivalent of simulating to the end. Just wants that out there.
Yeah. That was I took a course. I'm going down the rabbit hole here. HST 346, the American. The Modern Presidency was the course. And I had to do a paper, and it was on every president since Kennedy, and I was writing for the paper, for the newspaper at the time. I had a lot of I didn't have much in the paper on Jimmy Carter. I just had to get like the Cliff Notes version of Jimmy Carter, but I didn't want to use Cliff Notes, so I kind of read the pertinent chapters of the bio.
All right, Zach. We look forward to reading what you're going to write on allphly.com. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Zach, you are the man.
You're the best.
We all silly like the mayor.